Back in August, the Revolutionary Communist Party launched the Student Strike for Palestine campaign in Canada. 3 months out, what has been achieved and where do we go from here? Well, a few weeks ago, 85,000 students went on strike in Quebec against the Israeli slaughter of Palestine. And this was the largest student strike for international solidarity in Canada's history. The strike took place on November 21st in all the major universities in Montreal, both Anglophone and Francophone universities, as well as in colleges and cégeps. Over 1,000 people gathered in Montreal for the main strike rally, with speeches demanding an end to the genocide. While all the campuses on strike were in Quebec, there were dozens of campuses across Canada that held actions on November 21st. From University of British Columbia, University of Alberta, all 3 major universities in Toronto, to Dalhousie and more. This is a fantastic step forward for the Palestine Solidarity movement. After over a year, with hundreds of thousands of people demonstrating, boycotting products, signing petitions, and calling their MPs, nothing has changed. Israel continues their genocidal policy and continues to have the full support of Western imperialism. But a year later, our government continues to support the genocide of Palestinians. This is why in August we put out a call to organize a student strike for Palestine, to force the imperialists to stop their support by shutting down their institutions. We argued and continue to argue that a student strike is needed to escalate and breathe new life into the movement, which has clearly entered into a period of confusion and lull. RCP activists took the strike campaign to 45 campuses across the country, amassing support from hundreds of students and signatures from thousands, calling on the student unions to begin their mobilizations. The fact that some student unions went on strike in Quebec on November 21st and 22nd is a massive step forward. However, just 1 or 2 days of strikes will not change the situation. This is why we call on the student unions who voted for a strike on November 21st to take on this campaign, not treat it as a one-day action, but as a campaign to begin mobilizing for a student strike next semester and to put pressure on other student unions in the country to do so as well. This is the only way to take the movement forward. This strike was not achieved easily, and when we took it on, we knew it would be an uphill battle. We knew that a small organization like ours could not organize a student strike on our own. That is why we appeal to all pro-Palestine student groups and student unions to join the campaign and dedicate all of their resources and time to do so as well. If this took place, there's no doubt that a genuine mass student strike movement could have developed from coast to coast. Unfortunately, we did not see a positive response from most pro-Palestine groups that currently dominate the Palestine Solidarity movement. We were told on multiple occasions that a student strike was not realistic, or that people didn't care enough about Palestine to go on strike. However, I think the 85,000 students on strike in Quebec on November 21st proves these naysayers wrong. Some even opposed the strike because they said that it was too extreme. It was the nuclear option. We were told that continuing to put pressure on the administration and put forward reasonable demands was the way to go. But we have to be honest. This approach is precisely what has led the movement into a blind alley. Yes, when there is a genocide, the nuclear option is necessary. No business as usual when there's a genocide happening. There has been a clear division in the movement between those who put forward revolutionary class struggle methods that require mass mobilizations and those who are stuck in a reformist liberal mindset of making moralistic appeals to imperialist institutions. This reached ridiculous proportions when National SJP called for a student strike on November 21st. While we had already called for a strike date on November 22nd, we quickly changed our plans to November 21st for the sake of unity in the movement. Scandalously, various SJP chapters, including the one at TMU, refused to follow their parent organization's calls and join the student strike campaign. Instead, they told us that they preferred to pressure the administration to divest. There was even a layer of sectarians who actively tried to sabotage the campaign on different campuses. At UBC, a small group of liberals undemocratically took control of the student strike social media and banned the RCP. This was just before November 21st, and it paralyzed the student strike Instagram page and hampered mobilizations leading up to it. This sectarian attitude, which places their own petty grievances against the communists above the needs of the movement, is far too prevalent and needs to be vigorously denounced. Only in Quebec did the movement reach a student strike, but even there it didn't come without difficulties. We were met with opposition and sabotage. Under the pressure of events, with November 21st fast approaching, a lead activist with SPHR Concordia asked us to wrap up the student strike campaign so that they can save face and be the ones proposing a strike action on November 21st. This petty sectarian squabbling is exactly what repels people from the left and deters people from joining the movement. Fortunately, a good number of student unions did end up voting to strike, and this is a great step forward. But this is only a step. For things to have an impact, we need to shut down campuses across the country. The RCP are prepared to do our part to build the movement, but we are still a relatively small group and we can't do it on our own. This movement must have the resources and mobilizing power of the main student unions and pro-Palestine groups. The obvious place to start is with the student unions that went on strike on November 21st and 22nd. These unions can and should appeal to other student unions and all pro-Palestine solidarity groups to unite and mobilize for a student strike campaign across Quebec and Canada. 85,000 students on strike in the West for Palestine is a big success that we can and must build upon. So let's shut down the campuses and force them to divest from the Israeli war machine. Let's build a movement so powerful that it infects all of society and spreads to the working class. Let's build a movement so vast that it does not respect borders and it spreads to the United States and Europe and brings Western imperialism to its knees. This is how we free Palestine.